do that, we would need to find $1 million worth of budget cuts. At least, is that right? At least $1 million worth of budget cuts.
A little over $1 million.
260 times 4, 1 million.
You have to keep in mind, when I build the budget, or when we build the budget, and y'all talk about your tax rate, and the tax, 1 penny of a tax is a little over 266,000. When I build the budget, I've already accounted for the reduced amounts for land use, tax relief for the elderly. We still have the veterans still coming up. So actual expenditures that have to be cut is almost $278,000 to match that 1 penny, because we don't get the full 266 times the assessed value because of land use and the relief programs.
Okay. So let me go back to Mr. Seeley. Excuse me, back to Mr. Seeley. We're talking 278 times 4, which is still over $1 million, which is a pretty good chunk. Oh, thank you, Mr. Akers. 1.1 million. So that's, if you want an equalized rate, that's what we have to go back through the budget and find $1 million, $1.1 million of budget cuts to make.
I understand. That's in addition to. That's in addition to the cuts that we've already talked about. You'd have to look at basically $2 million to bring it down from 72 down to
64.
About $2.2 million.
Right, because I'm already committed to 4 cents in debt service for things that we did, like the wastewater treatment plant. So I'm literally going from 72, oh my gosh, to 62. No, I'm already committed 4 cents. If I go equalize, I got to go back down to 60, which means 12 cents.
Then you're into cutting departments.
Right. Okay. Just discussion. We're just 64, 68, 72. That's kind of, Mr. Seeley, you understand it. If we said 64, you understand it.
Yeah, and these are the numbers that I've been looking for. They're
Okay.
coming out with reality.
Okay. Mr. Popowitz?
Problem I have with even equalizing the rate is that the people in my district are mainly landowners. A lot of them are agricultural people, things like that. They have gotten hit pretty hard with droughts, other issues in farming. Saying that, I don't know how we get there, per se. We're going to have to dig a lot harder, but I don't see us even going to an equalized rate. We leave the rate the way it is and dig hard. I've given some suggestions in the past about privatization, but that's my thought process. We just dig hard.
Okay. So you're saying something even less than 64 cents is what you would look for?
Leave it at 53 cents.
Okay. 53 is $4 million.
You might as well shut down.
Excuse me?
You might as well shut down. You have certain programs that have to be funded. They've all had increases. So unless you're going to start cutting major departments, and I can't even schedule pay cuts to employees because I've got employees that are already limited now because of the comparable reimbursements.
Come back to the mic just to make sure. I mean, we heard you, but the other folks might not hear you.
I mean,
You can start after the shutdown part.
I mean, that is, leaving it at the 53 cents is a decrease automatically in your real estate taxes, in the revenue, a drastic decrease. So you're now talking about, you've got certain programs you have to fund. You can't get out of them.
Right.
You've got the VRA payment you have to fund.
And we've got the
I can't even suggest pay cuts because I've got positions that are comp board funded that are at the minimum now. I can't go below that. So there's no equitable way to put that across the board to employees.
Okay. And you and I talked about this when we first put the budget together, when you were putting the budget together, and I asked you to look at a 5% cut across the board, and you said at that time, 5% cut across the board actually meant losing personnel.
That's correct.
Okay.
Because I can't apply the 5% equally across the board to all departments.
Right. Okay. Just want to make sure we all understand. Ms. Popowitz, you understand the difficulty of getting to that particular goal?
I understand that.
Okay.
I think that we need to look at the minimal cost that we have, start from there, because we've started at 72 cents. That was an unrealistic figure in my mind to begin with.
Okay.
And I think we need to start from zero-based budgeting rather than cost-based budgeting.
I started with your equalized rate, left in certain things that I knew we had to fund, and at equalized rate, we were going to still be close to $600 million short.
Yeah,
I mean, $600,000 short,
I
because we had $600 million.
I understand, Ms. Hatcher. I understand. What I'm saying is, then we need to go back and look at what our minimal tax rate can be, and it doesn't have to start with the equalized rate, because we're assuming that we have to keep our revenues flat. That's what the assumption is when you equalize the rate. I'm saying that we don't have to, that we can cut deeper, and we need to look at that.
I'm open to any suggestions you have.
All right, we're just kind of going along, trying to figure out where we are now. Mr. Underwood?
Mr. Chairman, when we talk about the equalized tax rate, and I have to keep reminding myself that equalized does not mean equitable for everyone. Because there's three groups of people that we look at in terms of receiving revenue, in terms of real estate taxes. Some of the constituents in the county, their values were lowered. There's another group of constituents in the county whose tax rate, whose real estate value stayed the same. And there's a smaller group of constituents whose real estate value increased. For two of the three groups, that means their tax is going to increase, stay the same, or if they had a higher assessment, based on our equalized, not equitable, equalized tax rate. So for me, I have to look at the 64 cent plus the 4 cent that we agreed for capital program, I think it was
For debt service.
debt service. So for me, I'm looking at, and my constituents clearly voted no tax increase. They wanted none, other than the equalized rate, which I don't have any control over. But I'm willing to go back and meet with them again and explain to them that we need the 4 cent, because those are programs that we committed to. I think they would understand that. So I would be at the 68 cent rate. That's my thought.
All righty. Really, the purpose was to get some sort of discussion. I'm sorry, Mrs. Curran, but I think I told you we weren't going to set it tonight. We were just going to talk about where it was. We do meet again on Thursday, and I'm going to ask the board members on Thursday when we come, based on your position and what you think the rate should be, if you can come up with some ideas of places to cut. And I think that's only fair. If if you think it's 72 cents is fair, that's kind of easy. You can say, okay, 72, we'll take that. I don't think anybody's looking at that yet, so we have to figure out where we can find some additional funds. And the difference, again, fuzzy math, just easy, close math. At 68 cents, the difference between 68 cents and 72 cents is roughly $1 million in revenue. Okay? 68 cents to 64 cents is another $1 million in revenue or expenditures that we would have to reduce. So when we come back Thursday, we'll have to look at things to reduce and how we can reduce them. And Mr. Popowitz, I know you talked about privatization and ways to save money with privatization. and I think it's a good idea. My only concern is in this budget process, we have to decide in the next week or two, well, in the next couple of days, what our tax rate's gonna be and what our revenue's gonna be, and we may not see the benefit of privatization right away. Okay? Anything else? I think we all know where we are. Okay, we will work on that some more. Blah, 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 let's see. Who's gonna discuss the VDOT revenue sharing? Oh, Mr. Fincham.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we've received our annual letter from VDOT requesting whether the county wishes to participate in the revenue sharing program for this year. We have not identified, normally we would use the proffer funds if we were looking to fund a project. As we all know, proffer revenues are, I won't say stagnant, but down. And with the allocations previously discussed with the board, we have not identified any additional revenues that we think we could utilize for a revenue sharing program this year. But we felt this was a board decision and wanted to bring it to your attention to see whether you wanted us to submit a revenue sharing request this year.
And revenue sharing requests basically are matching funds that the state puts up X number of dollars and the county matches that.
Yes, sir.
Specific project that the county identifies.
Yes, sir.
And considering the fact that there is not a lot of money in the proffer fund to do anything more than a short driveway, does the board have any interest in trying to pursue revenue funds this year or wish to pass this year?
Pass this year.
Revenue funds, we have to match whatever the state puts up.
We don't have it. I think we have to pass. We don't have money to match. It's,
Okay.
If I remember right, didn't we have some cash proffers that came back from another source here? We talked about that during the discussion with VDOT last meeting.
We actually have 2 revenue sharing funds requests out there right now.
Okay.
And there are some funds from a previous project that come back to the county.
Yep.
The only other potential source, and I think VDOT discussed this, we do have some funds that are currently attributed to, I believe, the can't think of the term now, unpaved roads, and perhaps the rural addition project that might, you know,
I guess,
but we would still, we can't use those funds because they are state funds as our match.
okay, we can't use those. Yeah, I was just trying to think of a way to sweeten the pot to get Route 606 done, that's all.
Yes, sir. They indicated they're actually looking at another revenue stream for the Route 606 rail crossing.
Yeah, I realize that. Right. Thank you.
I guess my only question was, does it have any impact on the projects we already have in the pipeline for that?
No, this will not affect those.
I'm good.
All right. I hear 2 no's and I'm good.
In terms of just where we are and it doesn't have, yeah, I don't see anything other than to pass at this point.
I hear 3 passes. Mr. Akers, you want to pass too? All right, we'll pass unanimously then. That is unfortunate. Mr. Akers?
I'd like to amend the agenda under new business. Make a motion to amend the agenda under new business. To put a item in for borrowing, short-term borrowing for the primary school.
K-5.
K-5 to, pre-K through 5 renovations, as well as, temporary barring or short-term barring for the YMCA.
Okay, you want to address, all right, we'll do two of them. We'll make it 6A and 6B? Well, first of all, that's a motion to amend the agenda to include item 6A, borrowing for the school K-5 in Bowling Green, and also borrowing for the YMCA. Okay, that is your motion. Is there a second to your motion?
Second.
Okay, discussion?
I guess I'm just curious why we're amending the agenda at the end of the meeting.
No reason other than we're at the new business area.
I just think there were folks here that came to listen that thought we were done with the agenda and left. I just think it's,
Are we illegal, Mr. Chairman?
Well, normally we do amendments at the beginning of the meeting. You're right, Mr. Seeley.
we actually announced amendments to the agenda.
Well, actually, I didn't announce it. That was my mistake in the beginning, and I said that to Mr. Parton. But we did just make a discussion, or did just have a discussion with the school board regarding the other $3 million. So, you know, in that sense, it's not something we should normally do. But I think we're talking about the budget, we're talking about this borrowing. We might as well go ahead and get the two off the table for good. So we'll do that.
I would ask Ms. Jemison,
I
legal opinion.
I don't think, well, I paid for you to come here, you might as well say something.
I'm sorry, a legal opinion on?
Whether it's legal to amend the agenda at any point in time during the meeting, if the majority of the board agrees to it.
Yes.
We're getting
Under
ready to
your
see if the
rule.
majority of the board agrees to it. Okay, everybody understands the situation. We don't normally do this. Mr. Akers has asked for this exception. The chair is willing to take up this exception. He has a second for the motion. We really don't expect to do this again, but all those in favor, if there's no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Mr. Underwood, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Popowitz?
Aye.
Mr. Seeley?
Nay.
Mr. Akers?
Aye.
And I'm going to vote aye, so it carries 4-1. So we are now amending the agenda to include item 6A, borrowing for the K through 5, the additional $3 million that is projected for the K-5 school in Bowling Green from the school board. We don't really know if that's going to be the final number. We expect it to be a lot less, but the $3 million would be a revolving fund loan to some degree, which you and Mr. Rogers would kind of work out, Ms. Hatcher and Mr. Rogers would kind of work out for the county to make sure we did the best thing. So, okay, we'll take up 6A. Mr. Akers, would you like to
Please.
make your case?
Please. And I believe it's going to be considered as a line of credit because my thoughts are, right now, there appears to be that we're going to be able to get an interest rate of between 3.5% and 4%. We would have a line of credit where we would draw down the money as it is needed. And we would not start paying interest on the money until it was drawn down. The pre-K through 5 school, $6 million is going to be available to the school board after July 1, I believe it is, or somewhere around July 1. And then as they go through that process, using that money, then they're going to need to have assurance, and when they go out to contract, go out to bid, they don't even know they've got all that money available to them. So my thoughts are, we may not even use that money until February, March, or April of next year, and we will not start paying interest on it until that point. Whenever we draw down, that's when we'll start paying interest on that money.
Mr. Rogers, is that the case? I mean, that type of loan is out there?
Yes, it's called a line of credit. Essentially, what we'll do is there's a certain amount we have to draw down at closing. which we're gonna need for the school anyway, because that's an IRS rule that you have to draw down a certain amount. I think it's like 5%, if I remember, Ben. So we'll do that initially, but the rest of the money is not pulled out until, you don't pay interest until you use it, just like if you did a line of credit on your house, and if you didn't use it, you don't owe anything on it.
It's like a home equity line of credit.
It
we don't have a
works-
house.
It works like that, right.
Okay.
And I think the idea here would be to package the collateral pieces together so that we'd have the strongest package possible. So you've got the school, put the Y in there, we've got the ambulance we need to also borrow for, but we're gonna start amortizing principal on that one.
Okay, well, we're just talking about the school right now, so we can do the school, line of credit, that would work.
Right.
Okay. Any other discussion on the board? I mean, that's something we just talked with the school board about it seems like a couple of hours, but it was 4 hours ago. Any problem with moving ahead with that?
5%, how much,
Interest rate?
what's
What
the,
do you-
what's the interest rate, and what is the payment on that, and when is it due?
What we're, in terms of a 5-year note, what we're looking at is probably somewhere in a 3.5% to 4% range. So we're saying 4% range.
And we have to take 5% the day that we
Oh.
get the loan.
5%. Oh, you're talking about you're talking about the 5% down. Yeah, I can't remember, Ben, I don't know if you remember, it's like an either a flat number or a percentage.
Yeah, I don't offhand. I mean, that sounds
Yeah.
like it's
I know there's
ballpark.
a certain, maybe like 150,000 you have to open the line, if you will. That's an IRS requirement on a tax exempt issue. But as I understand this, if the schools are starting, they're gonna need some funds pretty soon anyway.
Well,
Not only that, we need, I guess, the ambulance at some point, if we include that in there, we'll need the funds for the ambulance pretty quickly.
Okay. But the issue really, and I think the 5%, fuzzy math, is $150,000.
There you go.
So the bottom line issue is, do you think this school renovation to K-5 is gonna cost $6,150,000 at least? Because that's the 150 that we're at risk for. And if you do, then that 5% is not really a big issue. If it is, if you think it's only gonna be 6 million, we're wasting $150,000.
Oh, I see. In case, sorry, I was missing the line, but I see what you're saying. We've got 6 million of Q-scabs. We're not really sure what the cost of the
Right.
project.
If they come
Right.
back with the project and say the project
Right,
is
then we just don't use the line, right.
$8 million, then of course we're gonna use the line. If they come back and say, well, we got a great deal from Joe's Builder,
Got it.
and instead of 6
Right.
million, it's gonna cost 5,900,000.
Then we haven't borrowed money that we don't need.
We borrowed money and I wasted $150,000 getting this $3 million loan.
Right.
So if I feel confident it's gonna cost me $6,150,000, I should go ahead.
Right. The only thing that, the only other possibility is somebody may have a fee in there, like an upfront fee, bank fee, saying, we're gonna put a fee of $10,000 in here to set the thing up. That would be the only other fees that might be in there, but,
Okay, $6,160,000,
yeah, so I'm just saying,
something like that.
until we send the RFP out and see, we're, not sure
Okay.
exactly what we'll see.
You understand what I was saying?
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Sealy?
I understand, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I feel pretty confident,
It's gonna cost
that-
$6,150,000.
that it'll be a sum greater than that 6 million, so I think it would be a good thing to put the money in
Okay.
Gotcha.
and have it.
All right, since we kind of committed to this already, is there a motion to that effect?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Akers, seconded by Mr. Underwood, that we proceed to establish a line of credit fund to pay the balance of the K-5 school renovations in Bowling Green up to $3 million.
Okay.
Discussion.
This is so this is contrary to what we talked about, doing this in the spring, borrowing the money for the 3 million, working on the 6 million that we were gonna get from the state 1 July. We were gonna work on that until we got to a point where we were sure about what the cost was gonna be, and then borrow the other, whatever we needed in the spring borrowing so that we wouldn't incur any additional cost. That's where we currently are.
And basically what we said to the schools tonight was we were gonna go ahead, commit to this project.
Right, and the 6 million comes available 1 July,
Right.
and we would do
And they'll spend-
April borrowing,
They'll spend their $6 million,
and they would spend it, because they have to spend 50% in the first year or something.
something like that.
And we would pick up with the remainder, because then we would know the remainder of the cost in the spring borrowing. Now what we're saying is we're gonna borrow the money now, start the meter on the interest
No.
of some sort
No.
now.
No, we're gonna establish,
Well, he's saying we gotta borrow 150,000, so that's gonna incur some cost.
no, we're gonna set up
Right,
all
central
of
line.
the procedures necessary to borrow this $3 million. We're not gonna borrow this $3 million until we get the number back from the schools that says it's $8-9 million, whatever their final number is.
Courtney just said that we have to take, when we open this line, we have to take 150,000 or so right out of the gate.
Right, and that's what I said is, if we feel confident it's gonna cost $6,150,000, we can go ahead.
Just saying it starts the meter on interest, though.
For
But
the
we're not
one-
gonna-
For the 150.
Right.
Right, but we're not gonna
Which-
borrow the money tomorrow.
No.
That's kind of what we're saying.
Yeah,
Okay,
you still
when
got
would
to
we-
approve that. right.
When would we have to borrow them? When would we have to take it? Whenever we want it?
When you tell me to go set an RFP out, we'll send the RFP out, have it come back, bring you the results, and you can approve it, and we'll move forward. So you tell me when you want to approve it.
Okay.
And we still have the ambulance we need to make sure we don't forget as well. Which
Okay.
is
How much
150.
interest are we talking about at 3.5 or 4% on $150,000?
$6,000 a year,
How much?
6,000 a year at 4%. So $500 a
And
month.
my concern is as we have seen interest rates creeping up,
Mhm.
in another 3 months or another 4 months, it may be 5 or 6%, and you're gonna more than pay $6,000 in interest, and that's gonna be for a longer term, rather than tying into a 3.5% or 4% at this particular juncture.
Right.
But we're still gonna have to roll that amount over whenever we borrow it into whatever the financing is at the time, correct?
You mean eventually take it out long-term?
Right, because the 3 million we're borrowing, you're saying short-term, 5 years is all we can stretch that note out.
Right.
So we either
Our
have to
hope
pay
is
it off
that
or
by that
refinance.
point, that the lit loan program will be back underway from the General Assembly, and then we can take it out with 3% money.
For school construction?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah, we've been working with the school superintendent to make sure that they follow the right procedures, that we get ourselves on the lit loan list as well.
okay.
Mr. Rogers, you do a lot of this, a lot of different localities. Do you sense interest rates are moving up now?
Long-term, they probably will head up. Short-term, we've seen them kind of bouncing around here lately, but the 10-year Treasury has been on a rise. I think the last couple of days it actually dropped for the first time in a number of weeks. So
Okay.
they've been showing a trend upward, yes, sir.
All right, so in your professional opinion, if we borrow this money now at 3.5%, we may indeed save money in the long run because interest rates would go higher.
Very possible.
Okay, very possible, neither one of us has a crystal ball, but
That's-
that's kind of the way you see things moving.
Hard to predict
Okay,
earthquakes and things like that that could cause problems.
so, Mr. Akers, you made the motion to proceed doing the paperwork. You'll come back,
Right off and pay, right.
I mean, you'll come back in a couple of months or so, or weeks or whatever, and say, I got this
However
right.
fast you all want us to come back, we can come back.
Okay, I think we need to look at it as quickly as possible, just in case rates are moving up.
Okay.
So if we can do this in another 30 days, we can lock that in, maybe save money in the long run. But we'll at least have another chance to discuss it, deliberate it, before we sign the papers to borrow
And
that.
actually have the number in hand as far as interest rate, any other business points that, may come up with the responses.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Let us see what that, we didn't vote yet, so we won't see what that is until we vote.
Right.
All right, the motion was to go ahead and get the figures for borrowing an additional $3 million for the K-5 school. Akers made the motion, Mr. Underwood was the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, the second one was, Mr. Akers had asked about